Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going completely under the hood of human behavior. Now, we often think of habits as these, massive mountains we have to climb that require just endless reserves of discipline and motivation. But our goal for this explainer is to totally shift your perspective on how habits are actually formed. We're going to look at the exact mechanisms your brain uses to turn repeated thoughts and actions into totally automatic behaviors. So think about this for a second. Why do some actions take immense willpower while others happen before we even consciously register them? You know that strange, actually it's almost a magical feeling when you're driving a familiar route home and suddenly you realize you haven't really been paying attention to the road for the last 3 miles. It's like your hands steered entirely on their own. Well, that shift right there is the absolute heart of habit formation. A habit isn't some magical upgrade to your personality or a sudden injection of willpower. It's really just an energy-saving shortcut. Your brain has learned to run a behavior with way less conscious effort, simply because it's become familiar, repeated, and highly predictable. Section 1. How repetition rewires us. Building paths of least resistance. To understand this, let's zoom right into the mechanics of the mind. Your brain is constantly filtering out noise because it literally cannot give full attention to everything all at once. So it pays very, very close attention to patterns. Think of it like a shopkeeper. A customer visits once, just a random event, but if that same customer comes in 5 days in a row, the shopkeeper starts to notice the pattern. Repetition tells the brain, hey, this is relevant information, not just noise. It's perfectly captured by this idea. Imagine water flowing over soil. The first trickle barely leaves a mark, but if the water keeps moving through the same place, a channel forms, and after that channel forms, the water just naturally follows the groove. That is exactly how repetition creates physical mental grooves in your brain. When you do something for the very first time, say navigating a brand new route or learning to tie your shoes as a kid, your mind has to actively assemble every single piece of the puzzle. What do I do? When do I do it? What comes next? It requires massive conscious effort. But once you've tied your shoes 1,000 times, you just reuse the existing known path. Your hands do it while your mind is entirely somewhere else, probably thinking about breakfast. The task didn't disappear, it just got delegated. Repetition lowers your mental effort because the brain no longer has to build the whole route from scratch. When we break down what repetition actually does, we see it builds that mental groove, making behavior easier. But most importantly, it increases predictability. Brains absolutely love predictability because it reduces uncertainty, and that feels safe. Here's the massive turning point, though. Repetition is a completely neutral force. It's not morally good or bad. It just strengthens whatever pattern is already there. So the exact same mechanism that builds a highly productive morning routine is the very same mechanism that reinforces late-night doom scrolling simply because the pattern is predictable and feels safe to the brain. Moving on to Section 2, the cue to reward loop. The machinery of habit. Because actions don't just repeat in a vacuum, right? We need to see what actually fills that mental groove and triggers it to run. And it all starts with the cue. A cue is the signal that wakes a behavior up. It's your brain's way of recognizing the context that says, okay, now is the time for this specific behavior. Now, it is incredibly important to clarify that the cue is not the behavior itself. It's just the starting gun. It's the brain reducing ambiguity so it has a clear starting point to launch from. Just think about the sheer variety of triggers surrounding us every single day. A place, a specific time of day, a feeling, a person, a sound. Picture hearing a familiar ringtone on your phone. Before you've even made a conscious decision, your hand is already reaching for it, right? You didn't decide from scratch. Your mind simply linked that auditory cue with the physical response. These cues don't force you into an action. Rather, they just politely invite a learned pattern to begin. So here is the exact 4-part blueprint your brain uses. Step 1, the cue appears. Step 2, a thought or an urge arises. Now, this is critical. Thoughts like, I'll just check for 1 minute, or I deserve a break, aren't random. They are literal links in the chain. Then step 3, the behavior happens. And finally, step 4, the reward follows. And remember, a reward doesn't have to be something glamorous. Sometimes the absolute strongest reward for the brain is simply relief from discomfort. If you feel anxious, which is the cue, and you scroll on your phone, the behavior, the reward might just be a temporary relief from that anxiety. The brain notices that relief, logs it as a win, and stores the whole 4-part sequence as highly useful for next time. Section 3, the secret of automaticity, how the brain compresses the loop.
How exactly does the brain take that clunky four-part loop we just looked at and turn it into a lightning-fast reflex? It does it through what we call compression. Before a habit is formed, a cue appears, you do some careful thinking, make a conscious decision, and then take action. It's slow, but after automaticity sets in, it's just cue straight to action. Think of it exactly like a shortcut on your smartphone. The first time you need a feature, you dig through 5 menus. But if you use it every day, the phone learns your pattern and offers it right on the home screen. The crucial point is that your brain safely skips the thinking and decision steps once it completely trusts the sequence. It compresses the loop.
Automaticity is not mindlessness. It's not magic. It is simply compression. And I want you to really hear this because it relieves so much guilt. Let's say you open your laptop after dinner, intending to study, but every time you sit in that exact spot, you open social media first. The cue isn't just the laptop anymore. It's linked to the thought, just a quick check, and the reward of immediate stimulation. When that happens, it is absolutely not a lack of discipline on your part. It is simply that your brain has learned a compressed, competing automatic script. It's just doing what's efficient.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Habits Shape Who You Are, making healthy habits part of your identity. Now that we know the micromachinery, we can shift our perspective from viewing habits as these terrible chores to seeing them as systems we can actively and compassionately design. Because repeated actions do so much more than just build loops. They literally teach your brain what your normal way of being is. Every time you repeat an action, it's a signal that says, hey, this matters here. Over time, those signals accumulate organically into your self-image. It proves that consistency matters far more than intensity. And wonderfully, it allows you to look at an unwanted habit and start identifying the physical cues triggering it, rather than just blaming your own character. Consider this. You do not build habits by fighting yourself into submission. You build them by repeating a pattern long enough for the brain to accept it as familiar, useful, and worth keeping. Habits are simply learned pathways. They aren't fixed traits. They are loops of cue, thought, action, and reward that you can compassionately and methodically redesign just by giving your brain new, consistent experiences.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to take with you today. Now that you can literally see the machinery running under the hood of your own mind, what competing automatic script are you going to redesign first? You are no longer guessing at your behavior. You are reading it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.